so I think that it is hard to, to catch-22, if you're looking just on the previous projects you've done, well, it's not the same thing. It's just a big college setting people over really successful projects. But we have to reach out. So we have to get together all the stakeholders here, and that's the people that sit on the study session, the people in the NRA, intramural and extramural programs. We've got to, get the funders on board. And I think part of what's exciting is seeing outside models come in and challenge that. So the Partner Institute, which I'm a big fan of, and there's Stanford's part of that in college. And that is a radical model for making sure that we're challenging some of these issues about data sharing and rewarding people for letting people do their work. I think this new dialogue thing is an exciting model, and I really applaud it. And so I think that it's already changing. I think that D. Meyer and what the energy he's bringing here is changing it. And so, I think that it doesn't mean we should stop advocating for it. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for your talk. My name is Steve, and I'm a faculty member here. And I actually co-direct with John, Center for Metrics, which is very interested in this issue. And we're actually convening a meeting in just 2 weeks, just 3 days after the inauguration in D.C. If D.C. still exists, with top funders, journal editors, and academics from Europe and the U.S. to address the system to address the question of whether we can develop a different incentive system, particularly for academic promotion. There's been a lot of talk about adjusting funding, about changing the journals, but I think the academic incentive system is the most you can get into culture and intractable. So you might want to cover the outcome of that. It's really exciting. We have everybody at the table, and there are already some models in Europe that we've not been able to implement here that are showing that it can be done. One thing, a comment I want to make about the funding people versus project, I really think you have to move to some sort of hybrid system, because we move to evaluating projects to get out of the old boys network. I literally mean the old boys network, where it's, who knows who's influential. A lot of the people that who are stars have had their stardom recognized through their projects. So it's very difficult to recognize stars, early on, or have that be independent of previous powerful people. So there has to be a system that allows for merit to be shown in multiple ways. So I think we have to be a little bit judicious about this being a solution, because that will introduce new problems and back problems that we've already experienced and that we try to move away from, but with problems of this new system as well. So I think we have to develop sort of more ecumenical systems that recognize creativity and productivity in multiple ways, and actually develop better ways to even recognize what is scientific quality. That is a huge problem to figure out. Even when you say, the best and smartest people, how do you figure that out? It's really not. It's very, very tough.
I think those are excellent points. And let me take in order. The first one is, if you don't think that the 5-6 days of Professor Rain wasn't fine, all you biblical scholars up there, about the Washington Company. But secondly, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we did have a problem with the old boys network, and still have a problem, frankly, around the world with a white male old boys network. And it's pretty terrible. And so we can't take this up together. What are the reasons for people versus projects? And it's not, again, we have to hybridized way of filtering out our biases, which is critical and important. But it's the inefficiency in the system. And so, and the other problem is that the academic science, much of what we do green light, a lot of it we don't really judge whether it's really, benefited the world or not. And so one thing that John talks about is whether a random approach would be actually better, or how much you would actually lose in that. Because what you would gain in, you would have a couple of people, funding the, flapping a like. Please visit us at med.stanford.edu.
Good afternoon. It's great to see all of you here this afternoon. We're really pleased and honored to have a leader in medicine in the country of the world today, and a leader in our government today, Dr. Rob Califf, who is Commissioner of the FDA. Rob was confirmed with a overwhelming vote of the Senate in February of this year. He's been at the FDA prior to becoming Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner for Medical Devices and Tobacco, and prior to that, he's been Professor of Medicine and also Vice Chancellor for Clinical Translational Medicine at Duke. Rob and I go way back. I did my internship in junior residency in surgery too, when Rob was junior attending cardiology, and I did delivery number of patients on the post-op cardiac surgery unit when the angioplasty revolution was beginning, and Rob was certainly one of the leaders in that, and those patients used to be hospitalized in the post-op heart unit after angioplasty. And the joke among the cardiac surgeons was, this is the last, they're going to burst the arteries, and there's going to make more business for the heart surgeons. Of course, the rest is history. And I think even at that early stage, Rob was demonstrating his ability to think outside the box, to really be a pioneer in defining future paradigms, and to challenge all of us, to challenge conventional wisdom, and look for really how each of us, individually and collectively, can have the maximum impact of what we're doing. During Rob's tenure at the FDA, both before becoming commissioner and now, he championed a number of initiatives. I think we talked about some of those today, but in particular, Rob is looking for ways that the FDA can harness the tremendous amount of information embedded within the data that the FDA collects from so many different sources, and that today oftentimes sits in repositories and isn't really being mined for the type of information that could be gleaned from it. And that, of course, is very consistent with what we're trying to do here today at Stanford Medicine, in defining really the role and the opportunities for precision health. That is how we determine, using genomics, using big data science, how we assess risk factors for disease and develop better interventions to prevent disease from developing, or to diagnose it earlier and therefore treat it much more effectively. So today's speech lecture is going to be a bit different in that Rob is not actually going to lecture. Instead, we're very honored that Bob Harrington, our Professor and Chair of Medicine at Duke, and a long-standing colleague, Professor Chair of Medicine at Stanford, and a long-standing colleague of Rob's from, as you are saying, as you are here, Bob Harrington, Professor Chair of Medicine at Stanford, and a long-standing colleague of Rob's from Duke, where they work together in forming the magnificent clinical research enterprise that is at Duke today. So Bob and Rob, please come on up. I want to show you that was not going to make it up the front, so I tried to leave it the other way. So thank you, Lloyd, and thanks everybody for coming. This is
it should be really fun. One of the things that we want to do is make this an audience participation. So I have several pages of questions. I've also known Dr. Califf has wanted to suggest it a long time, and so the opportunity to ask them whatever's on my mind is always, look forward to. So we'd like to get you involved. As Lloyd has said in my conversations with the commissioner's staff, what we really want to talk about today is what's being called the knowledge reservoir from FDA. We want to lead off with a series of questions really about how do we as a country, how do we as a society open up some of that data to make new insights, to learn new things about devices, diagnostics, therapeutics, drugs, biologics, etc., and what might be the process, what might be some of the methods by which we do that. Rob's also going to have a chance later today to meet on the same topic with a group of local corporate individuals, and so get a different perspective on the topic. So I think that this will be an important part of informing him as he thinks about these type of policy implications. Rob, before I kick it off, do you want to make any opening remarks? Let's say anything to the group.
I'll try to stay brief because I think the most fun parts of these kind of business are about the audience participation and getting on the issue. So, but in brief, I'm sort of on a college tour. This is the last stop. As you know, there was recently an election, and I have a presidential appointment, which means as a pro forma exercise, I've turned in my resignation, which I've done. It's up to the president to decide who the FDA commissioner should be. But I really don't regard the FDA commissioner job as something that's like a limited issue. It's really a privilege on a national basis to get a very broad view of what's happening in this country. It's about 20% of the economy. We actually have 40 PhD economists at the FDA, something I didn't know until I got there. Everybody's estimate is that we regulate about 20% of the economy. 11% of it is actually food. The other 9% is mostly biomedical, and of course, tobacco, which is a big issue for us. We've recently taken on. But one thing that I know about, I think within the FDA, there was a nice personality with around was happened to the National Enterprise of Healthcare Delivery, which is obvious. It's pretty Stanford. But now the CSM has everybody's left out because they have a few patients here and there. It was on average power and investors doing science research, but clinically, a few good things. So, you now have a thriving health system that's growing and adding all sorts of things like everybody else. In fact, if you look across the country, it's consolidating into a few hundred big systems, all of which have medical school as a central component, and these enterprises are now beginning to spin off technology companies at a very fast rate that are in the spaces that we're regulating. And the boundaries that used to exist against Stanford is obviously been a real leader. Going back a ways, boundaries between academia, business, and industry are being broken down. And we need a strategy to deal with it. So I've been to a number of places over the last couple of months, just small labs. So I think we'll be having some time in San Francisco and friendship with you. And Lloyd didn't even mention my younger brother, Lloyd Rithers, again. So we got some Lloyd stories I can tell later on. And I'll leave them in reserve. So I really look forward to exchanging ideas about what to do with a fundamental issue that I believe strongly, and I think is very strongly believed throughout the FDA, which is the big revolution in healthcare is really an information revolution. And we've gone from a time when we were struggling to get data to a time when everybody gets data. Trying to get information and knowledge is a huge challenge. And it's a bigger challenge in medicine than almost any other area for also cultural reasons, not necessarily technological reasons. So we're trying to figure out how to unlock that situation within the FDA, but also in the ecosystem in which we live, where the big advances are likely to occur through wide-scale sharing of data, high-level analytics, which is just the way it's done in Silicon Valley for many other aspects of society. So I look forward to this sort of whole 2 days. And having it off on Friday, I'm in Washington, where we're bringing in 75 people of all the representative industries and power brokers and federal agencies in the private sector to talk about the evidence generation system of the country, what should it look like, and have some parts fit together. So that's my story, and I really look forward to hearing what you all think about it. So let me jump into it, Rob, and his way of background, because we have looking at a fairly diverse audience here. Most people know that the FDA holds enormous amounts of data, but it's largely for individual product decision making. And much of that data that's held in individual product decision making is regarding its ultimate commercial use. What people probably know is that you have data that extends from biomarker data to imaging data to clinical data to a very large population worth of data. What they probably don't know are some of the statutory limitations around who has access to that data, who uses that data, etc. So let me maybe walk through some things so you can help the audience at least have a framework. Maybe the first is, can you give people some sense of the amount of data that's held by the FDA? What was termed by your staff as a knowledge reservoir? You have regulatory decision making, you have all the files submitted by companies, how many products are in there, how many years of data, what about the storage, is it all computerized, is a lot of it in paper? And give the audience a sense of what we're talking about here. I'll try to keep because we got through this on topic. But we have amounts of data. It's disaggregated, not highly organized. There's an experience I had over a decade of working with the FDA as a consultant on computerizing applications from companies in the device industry. Found out staunchly that it was unfair to small mom-and-pop garage companies to demand computerized entry. So there's still stacks of paper, which you've seen in these applications that go in. But we also have a huge amount of computerized data from clinical trials. Unfortunately, not all collected with the same standards, but at least it's highly curated data. And we can talk a bit about the legal limitations. We get more people to know it, but I like, for the purposes of the day, for the most part, just assume that laws can change what they can. And if the vote of Congress is just reflected in the bill that was signed, that the president signed yesterday, I was talking about Marysville. That's just a country board in South Carolina, but going to a bill signing was a pretty amazing experience. And the Juris legislation was signed yesterday. I'm down to suit because I didn't get a chance to change, so I've got my fancy White House suit on. This bill has a lot of innovation-friendly stuff in it. It started out maybe not so good from the FDA perspective, but it's really turned out to be a great bill for FDA. It instructs us to do things like think about how to do clinical trials better. It has a pathway for regenerative medicine with a funded NIH network. We have input to find out what actually works and what doesn't for things that people are doing. It tells us to work out the methods of real-world evidence so that we can use that in practice. And all this is a view of Republicans and Democrats, and we got to get over the hoarding of data from health systems. It has to be interoperability. Built-in is a loaded word that means a lot of different things. Many of you in the audience know more about it technically than I do. So it's an exciting time for innovation that we need to take advantage of. So let's talk a little bit first about the statutory limitations. You and I were involved years ago when the precluded the pediatric exclusivity clause of actually sending some of our faculty members up to FDA to pour through all of that data. But there were use limitations about what they could and could not do. Was that something exclusive to pediatrics, or does that possibility of getting across companies, across products, exist in other diseases today? So I'm starting by saying I think a major role for universities in today's society is to help society figure out what to do for what the rules should be about data sharing. Because we're starting from a place where information is trade secrets, and it's actually a crime for an FDA employee to reveal that information. Without jail, we do this, so it kind of holds you up a little bit in terms of wanting to share too readily. But in addition to the law, there are decades of precedents on interpretation of the law, both by courts and inside the FDA, and that can be changed if it makes sense to change it. But I think the main thing to know is that commercially confidential information, trade secrets, we by law can't reveal this as law to companies. And then there's this major legal question that's actually never been tested, but we talk about a lot, and it's really coming to play with clinicaltrials.gov. We're quite proudly finalized a rule on that, and it makes things work out yet. But the question is to whom does the data from a human experiment belong? And as you know, the way I like to think about this is ask the question, would you like to say, oh, well, we did a secret human experiment? I just don't think that really rings true as a good. Like when people volunteer, when you get permission to do the experiment, you sign an institutional agreement that you understand you're doing this to create generalizable knowledge. And the secret is hard to say is creating generalizable knowledge. But who wants the data from clinical trials? It's actually never been legally tested. So my knowledge from education side of FDA say belongs to the companies. And I'm not here to tell anyone what the answer is because I don't know it, but universities need to be thinking about these things. There's a lot at stake. Your next station, we were talking about breast cancer on the stairs. The fact that so much data is not available means that we don't know what to do, and maybe the answer would be there if we could aggregate the information and look at it from a different perspective.
Yes, well, let's stick on that topic, Rob, because one of the questions that will come up, I think, is are there examples that you've had come across your field of vision? The breast cancer, for example, other cancers might be a good example, where you say, if we could piece this together, we could aggregate this together, this is more to be told.
Well, my most useful tactic with Congress is to use my mom. And I have total permission to do this. She's 89 years old. She's 9 years of multiple myeloma.
She was at the confirmation hearing.
She came to the confirmation hearing. She didn't like what Senator Sanders had to say about it. And she actually wrote him a note, put it in his mailbox, while in the chambers. But, the great thing for me at the FDA is she's had recurrence of severe multiple myeloma 4 times, about 4 times. It just so happened that the new drug got through the FDA and was available. Most recently, about 4 months ago, I got a call about hospice from her oncologist. It turned out the Daratumumab had just been approved based on uncontrolled single-arm studies with a total of like 200 patients. And she's had a miraculous recovery again. And she knows she won't live forever. She's giving me permission to talk about her. And so in that case, Daratumumab turns out to be replacement cell that went from 60% of the marrow to something like 5 to 10%. And her anemia went away, and she's causing me trouble and complaining. So that's all good. But you ask me, what do we know about 89-year-old people with multiple myeloma? Not much. How many people between 85 and 95 with multiple myeloma are seeing oncologists who are getting paid a lot of money to invest in therapy and health systems that are making a lot of money off of oncology? But the data is being collected in computers, but where's it coming?
When we talk about precision health, precision medicine, a lot of the phone conversation falls to cancer. You might imagine it's great. I'll just push back and say, well, come on, it's not all about cancer. There's other things we're going to learn here. If you see a large swath of data coming across FDA, any examples outside of cancer that excite you, that you say, geez, this is something you should know.
Well, you know everything excites you. So, like I said, you name any disease, any medical problem.
Let's talk about diabetes for a minute. You were involved before you went to FDA, and our medical grand rounds this morning was on cases from diabetes. What's staggering is now with the guidance document from 2008, there's literally dozens of trials going on. But the ability to compare across trials, think about the indirect comparisons, think about what you know from one trial versus another, it's really hard to do in the current system.
Yeah, so an ecosystem had a common framework for the collection of the data, and they just simply did A, B, or ABCDE comparisons. We still don't know which drugs to use. How important is the base? And now, it's like, it's still fair enough. We also don't have all the critique of what some of us help push through the outcome trials of diabetes. Some of them actually reduce mortality, and you like that about all chronically given. So there's tremendous amount learned to be learned, I think, from a common information framework, and it's easy to refer to these because somebody said the concept of basket trials and core protocols where you learn as you go along, I think, is really critical. But let me also say, we met yesterday with basket groups for rare diseases, 5,000 rare genetic diseases with no treatment today in the U.S. now. One individual health system cannot solve that problem, and the best way to solve it is to have a national system that finds, if there's 60 people with a particular kind of rare disease, you need all 60 to make progress in. It's another example where broad data collection can have a huge impact on making things possible. This couldn't have been done before.
So let me ask you, your comment there, Rob, just made me think of it. It was not something I had thought about previously. I was going to ask you. There is a rare disease network funded by NIH. You're both NIH and FDA, both HHS agencies. What's the data sharing that exists between NIH and FDA? And is that a cultural blockade or is that a statutory blockade?
One of the things I had to learn about was actually lawyers who protect one federal agency from another. And we have to have the MOUs. But just, one thing you wouldn't talk about that relates back to the legal framework. If an FDA employee reveals a trade secret to an NIH employee, then reveals it publicly, the FDA employee goes to jail, not the NIH employee. That's the way the law is written. And so we're in the process now of developing a set of MOUs that allow for much broader sharing of information between NIH and FDA. But those have to have very specific lists of people who then sign agreements about confidentiality, much like you would between businesses. Is something I wouldn't have even considered would be necessary, but it's real. And there's a lot of stake. That's what we're seeing, particularly with the originating diseases. This is not time from NIH grants to start a company in clinical trial. It's all in the press. And so we don't want naive NIH grantees doing things that you would sort of do academically, but you wouldn't think it would ever be scrutinized in a regulatory environment. We need to fix that because we're finding that if we have fully validated biomarkers, for example, that end up in the regulatory pathway, we've got a real problem. It can't be reproduced. And we have a couple of situations like that recently.
Well, let's get towards that area even a bit deeper. Today you mentioned in your opening remarks about clinicaltrials.gov legislation that I know that you've been a big part of and a big advocate for. It's interesting to know that the industry is taking this out, and almost all of the industry-sponsored clinical trials have made their way into the reporting structure. Not so the NIH-supported trials, or even worse, for the university-supported clinical trials. Do you want to try to comment on that? Where can we validate information sharing?
Yeah, part of the college work I'm doing is because I am concerned that the biggest hoarders of data now are integrated health systems. And it's a cultural thing. So part of it emanates from the history of the NIH, where the rugged individual was the object of admiration, and that is translated into many things that are great and some that are not so good. But in addition to that, now places like Stanford, are developing big health systems, and data is regarded as an asset to be protected. On the other hand, we know that to solve a lot of these problems, we've got to share the data, and we don't have a great way to do it. So clinicaltrials.gov to me is just an example where the history had been, why bother to share your trial results in a clunky federal system? You're doing it for your own narcissistic purposes. I love the word narcissism as it relates to academia. It's an interesting thing. And the answer is because you're doing human experiments, and you have an obligation socially to put the information out there. Well, then people say, well, there are a lot of bad clinical trials, and why should we have to put those out? They're not useful. And I say that is if you do a bad human experiment, you probably should be forced to put your information out there so people learn not to do that again. And remember that the NIH-funded clinical trials, a very high percentage never finish. Another high percentage finish and never get published. And those that get published, a very high percentage are on site at one time, being no one thought enough of it to even consider it in the context of knowledge generation that we need. So I think one of the great advantages of having now the law that says you not only must publish that you're doing a trial, you have to also submit your results within a year of completion of the primary endpoint, and you have to publish your protocol and your analysis plan, is that the sunlight will provide the kind of scrutiny that will get rid of the wasted resources that are going on. Lousy studies. Jack Woodcock at FDA has this term SCT, which is called small crappy trials. Yeah, we have to get rid of small crappy trials and focus on the energy on trials that really matter. So you can see how this, in my view, sort of fix one part of it, and it begins to have an iterative effect on the rest of the system.
So I'm going to pause here and see if we've been going for about 25 minutes. If there are questions out of the audience, questions for the next 12 minutes, Mike will come to you. Introduce yourself and then ask the question. I'm going to say, Elliot Gray, I'm in the department of pediatrics and anesthesiology, so I'm interested in allergies and drugs. As I'm sure you're aware, 80% of drugs given to children are unlicensed by the FDA for that purpose, and there are no approved analgesics for babies under 6 months, only one for those 6 months to 24 months, which is ibuprofen, which is a significant problem. The pharmaceutical industry, because of DCTA and the pediatric rule, are forced, and to some extent, intensive to provide to pediatric trials, but I think looking back in the last decade, those have been unsuccessful in getting analgesia trials done, especially opioids and some other analgesics. What do we have to look forward to in your view to get drugs studied and approved for pediatric use?
Well, you may not have referred to this for a whole variety of reasons. Let's hear about that. I have a daughter who had congenital heart disease who was doing extremely well thanks to great surgery at UCSF down the road when I was an intern. I'm very interested in pediatric therapeutics, and we were very involved in the pediatric rule of the VPCA and PREA that have moved us from, I think the number now is over 300 drugs that have changed labels because studies were finally done in children as a matter of law. But, it's only the beginning. And please don't misinterpret me on this, but I can't help it. I have more than ever come to appreciate the privileged position that you're in as physicians and academics. You get a lot of benefits, like tax rates and things, and a lot of status because of who you are. And I think you correctly identified that the industry is not going to fix this. The medical products industry is not going to fix it. The government is, I don't think in the near-term future is going to be in a position to mandate much beyond what we have. So this really is, in my view, a professional matter. And I think the pediatricians of the world need to continue what they started. I think Barry has done a great job with, but you're pointing out we need to go further, and it's a professional responsibility to incorporate questioning and research into the practice so that the cost goes down. One of the big inhibitors to getting industry to do things is that the way trials are currently done is so expensive that there's no return on investment for these kinds of trials. So I think I'm going to throw it back at you and say, banding together and making this happen as a matter of practice is critical. I will say I need to be vociferous because you may know I've been every day I've been living with opioids like a lot of others. If you saw the occasion yesterday, I think it almost brings me to tears. Actually, the president was in tears. They started with a mother and father from West Virginia talking about their daughter having a sexual assault, using heroin, getting off of heroin, and then having an athletic injury. She was a long distance runner, and having a doctor give her opioids for athletic injury and then overdosing and dying. The result of that is the politicians said no more opioids, and no matter how much we say they're actually children that have pain that need to be treated because they need to figure out how to do it rationally. You guys are really going to speak up and give the political will for the studies to be done. Can we tell them like this so they can other people here? I've been involved in many clinical trials again sponsored by pharmaceutical industries, and one of the problems that seems to exist that's an impediment to FDA approval of drugs are the obstacles to completing trials that are imposed by the FDA. So I'll give you one example. It's pretty clear to those of us who practice in this field that new opioid receptors, new opioid agonists are effective analgesics regardless of the age of the organism, or indeed oftentimes regardless of the organism. But the FDA continues to require not just safety and PK studies to approve an opioid analgesic in the pediatric age range, but they continue to want evidence of efficacy. While the evidence of that efficacy is self-evident, at least to me, there are significant impediments to doing placebo-controlled pain trials in vulnerable subjects such as children. So we're caught between a rock and a hard place. We're told we have to do placebo-controlled trials, and yet IRBs view those and they're stinky, according to use those as an unethical exercise in the pediatric age range. And I don't see scientifically why efficacy trials are required at all for certain kinds of drugs. They are well recognized as effective in adults. I'm suppressing the need for a really good academic argument here because of my current role. One of the great pleasures for me was running into Harry Greenberg on the way in this morning, so we had one of our old-fashioned back and forth, which I have to be careful about doing in my current role. So what I say is this: number one, many drugs now get approved and have labels updated without placebo control. Number two, I'll just be a little provocative. I would say you have to try harder. You have to convince the FDA. In most cases, when a profession really strongly believes something and they're not on the take, and I don't mean that most of the time people are not on the take, but sometimes like there's money being made by the use of certain products and that leads to bias. So that's not the case. Most of the time the professional will win out. And in this particular example, I would urge you to escalate the discussion because I can tell you we are working on opioids every day. And if there's something that's impeding, critical knowledge about what to do with children, I think there are escalation avenues that are very available to you. So I urge you to use them. And I think you can win the argument. So I appreciate your concern. But if you can win them, we are.
Rob, very great remarks. As you probably know, mutual friend Brian Straub recently published an op-ed piece in the New England Journal called If the Use Worked with Squeeze, which was an analysis of a very large database. As I understood it, the pharmaceutical companies have made available for analytics of a lot of their drug trials. And the point of this article, which I had no way of validating, was that there has been almost no utilization of this trove over an introductory period of about 2 years. Do you have any concern that making all of this data available won't really move the needle, that people don't do a lot of secondary analysis?
The short answer is no. But the longer answer is, I think a lot of things need to sort of find their right place as you go through it. And I think part of what happened that led to this was a lot of contentiousness about pharmaceutical companies hiding critical findings. And I think what happened was that turned out not necessarily to be the case as much as people claim. And so people aren't thinking about the other kinds of questions that can be asked about things like natural history of the disease. We also have, by the way, getting back to being an enormous shortage of qualified analysts to deal with complex data like this. And I think another element of it is the requirement for audit trails as part of the analysis. So some of the crackpots that basically didn't want to be outed for not necessarily doing honest analyses themselves. So I think in the long run, in almost every case I know, making good data available to more people is a social good. It will play out. And I'll take another use that people are thinking about is what I said. Learning about what to do and what not to do in the trials that have already been done, I think can be very helpful for the future. So I think my specific point is factual that so far when these clinical trials have been made available, people haven't made great use of it.
So here's a question up here, if we could bring the mic. And then when you're done, maybe pass it down the aisle to Vince.
Hi, I'm a first-year postdoc, and I'm actually funded through a fellowship that's partially associated with the FDA. And one of the cool things that we learned in this position is that you partner with a specific division of the FDA, and you get to see some of how their decision-making happens and what the challenges are in case of, what information do we need to make a decision about clinical trial data, or how do we vet biomarkers that are submitted with a new drug application. And I'm just wondering if you could comment where the FDA is going, either internally or externally, with other academic partnerships about how to solve these types of problems with what is the right regulation. If we always need a placebo trial, is that something we'll do in-house, or is it something we'll work with a company or an institution?
I think the dominant view of the FDA is we exist in an ecosystem. In the good old days when doctors only had paper medical journals and sales reps to deal with, the FDA had an important obligation of suppressing inappropriate transmission of information. We still have that obligation by law, and we use it, but the information ecosystem is basically the internet. It's all out there. And so the way to make progress is really to have all sectors come together in multi-sectoral problem-solving mode. And there's no question that a little bit of money can grease the skids. Like, it's amazing what's happened. It's called the CERC program, where we have a limited number of institutions that we have funding to. A little bit of money seems to stimulate a lot of activity and bring in other sectors. So I'd say we're wide open. Again, another role for universities, I guess, in this sort of legal component is our dual role is complicated because our mission says and when it comes to protecting the public, we have to make decisions that need to be free of bias. We need to be seen as full-time government employees directing our shareholders of the 320 million Americans, not any particular sector. And if we're interacting a lot with people in a more academic mode and problem-solving mode in general, and innovation mode, then it's hard to say objective, and it's easy to be accused of having been biased by those interactions. So we need a lot of help in figuring out the rules of the road in this new global information dense environment that we're in. But the short answer is people have to love interactions with academics and with anyone who has a good idea, and we would encourage more of it.
So let me build upon that question, maybe tie it back to Harry's. You and I talk a lot about the kind of partnerships that exist. You get the audience a sense of share a little bit of money, the sort of scope of what the FDA is designated in that innovation partnership realm. And then, as you know, when I talk with you in public, I always give you a chance to give the FDA jobs. I look at so many people here. So why don't you do both of those? Because you do create a story about the opportunity for innovation within the FDA.
Yes, I look at it in spheres. I mean, we have about $5 billion a year budget in total to regulate effectively in today's environment. Much of it needs to be standards and principles based, not a product at the time based. So there's a lot just of day-to-day interactions where we can always do better, but there's a lot to be gained from the interactions. We have a very limited amount of research funding. We're not a fundamental research agency, and Congress is very aware of that. And so we're not going to get a lot of research dollars. But we look at it pretty carefully. For example, we just put out a series of grants for natural history studies of rare diseases. And there are 5 of them, and there are 5,000 rare diseases. So it will stimulate activity, and other people will come into that sphere. And not because we need natural history studies to then do the clinical trials with good basic knowledge to begin with about the diseases. But then the thing that's really the gem that I have really enjoyed is our interactions with other federal agencies are substantial. And, NIH is doing a lot of things very close. We have a joint leadership council with NIH. We meet once a quarter. We identify key areas, and there's a lot of responsiveness by NIH in terms of the problems that we need to solve. The new clinical trials directive is a lot related to joint thinking about what the country needs. And then, we just finished our user fee agreement negotiations with medical products. And it still has to be considered by Congress, and they have to pass a law to enact them. So it's not totally done, but built into those user fees, it's not just fee for service at the FDA, which is review the applications on timelines. But we identified with industry a number of topics like patient-centered outcomes, clinical trial design, real-world evidence that are built into the user fees when the industry supports to do research. So that's another big opportunity. And in that, because of the user fee agreements and the industries are doing quite well, we have additional jobs that we're hiring. If you want to look at data, and you might have seen everything in technology that's being developed, we have jobs at the FDA. So, and also with CARES Act, we got a pay raise and an opportunity for special considerations for high-end scientists because everyone recognizes that. For example, Jackson Labs 3 weeks ago, this company said, we're developing nutritional products based on the interaction of the human genome, the microbiome, and the food that you eat. How are you going to regulate that? I said, okay, we we're looking for people. Even those for a few years, I would submit that where translational science is headed, if you spend a couple of years at FDA, you'd be in a great position to do just any number of things afterwards. Great, thank you. Let me take applications back here.
東名の駅バス停に東名高速道路のバス停東海大病院東名高速道路高速道路の近くの駅東名高速道路のバス停があると思うんですけどそこに近いバス停ってはい東名高速道路のバス停の近くのはいバス停あったんですけどそれは分かってるんですけどそれに乗るバス
4番線の大山ケーブルです。
そうです。どうも。はい。